Welcome back, voodoo dolls, to another scary video. So today I'm going to be reading from Let's Not Meet, and it's going to be the same gist as last time. I'm going to be reading one long story, two medium stories, two short stories. And at the end, I have an announcement to make. My very friendly classmate. This was posted by Queen Moogle. This is a story from a few years back when I was in my last year of college. I was taking a history class that I loved, and it just so happened that my good friend Amelia was in the class too. Of course, we sat next to one another. The class was taught by a very popular professor, so there were a good deal of people in it. At the time, I was a smoker, as was my friend Amelia, so we made a habit of sharing cigarettes after class. Around this time, I was starting to befriend another person, Rachel. She and I didn't take any classes together, but she lived with another good friend of mine, so we started to get to know one another. Rachel and I would do homework together, hang out outside of the library together on study breaks, and so on. Amelia met Rachel separately, and before long, the three of us became a little trio. About a month after we all became friends with Rachel, this boy from Amelia and I's class started saying hello to us during our cigarette break. He would make little comments here and there about things we learned in class, and would ask us how we were doing on papers and such. Eventually, we learned that his name was Ryan, and Ryan became a fixture in our cigarette ritual. After a little while, Amelia and I noticed that Ryan was asking a lot of questions about our daily schedules. At first, we thought he was just trying to get to know us and our interests, but his questions were getting specific. What times did we go to the library? When did we study in other places than the library? Who did we like to study with? He was normally a smiley and friendly self the whole time, but the subject of the matter of his questions were just off. We thought perhaps he was just a bit socially awkward. A lot of people at our school, well known for being full of eccentric students, were, well, eccentric. It wasn't terribly uncommon to encounter someone who acted a bit differently than the norm. We let it slide. Ryan started asking Amelia and I to hang out after class. He wanted to tag along in what we usually did, but Amelia and I were both unusually busy at the time, and it kept not working with our schedules. He kept asking every day after class though, and we noticed that he was getting less happy and significantly more irritated as time continued to go on. Amelia and I both agreed that he was starting to make us uncomfortable, though we couldn't quite put our fingers on why. One day, Rachel met Amelia and I at her dormitory, saying she had something serious that she needed to speak with us about. When we got there, we settled onto a bench and got talking. Rachel told us that she had recently gotten out of a terribly abusive relationship with a boy who hit her, sexually assaulted her, and took general pleasure in her misery. Around the time we had met Rachel, she had begun the process of reporting him to the campus authorities in an attempt to have him removed from campus. A temporary no-contact order had been put into place between the two of them. Rachel had told us that she had been moved from the dorm that she was living in so that he wouldn't know where she lived. She also found out that her ex was attempting to befriend people that she knew in an attempt to find out where she was living, where she spent her time, and what she liked to do and when. She wanted to warn us in case he approached us, so that we could keep our distance and not reveal any information about her routines. She told us his name, and his name was Ryan. Amelia and I both looked at each other in shock. To confirm, we asked Rachel to describe what he looked like, and she started to describe our new cigarette buddy and classmate to a freaking T. We immediately informed Rachel about the interactions we had been having with Ryan, and Rachel informed us that we were the fifth and sixth people that she had confirmed that Ryan was attempting to make contact with. Of course, we immediately started avoiding him, switching up our routines to make sure we left the area immediately after class ended. A few weeks later, Ryan stopped showing up to class, and neither of us saw him ever again. A few weeks after that, Rachel informed Amelia and I that Ryan had been expelled from the school. He had sexually assaulted another student at a party. When they went to collect the evidence from his dorm room, they had found a detailed ledger of information he kept about Rachel and pieces of writing about all of the horrendous things he wanted to do to her. I'm not entirely sure what happened to him, but just in case the message was not clear. No, Ryan. Let's not meet. Edit. Made grammar corrections. Obligatory mobile warning. I'm autistic, and I was around 10 or 11 when this happened, since it was a couple of years before we moved. I had recently gotten my first phone at the time. My dad and my uncle started going to a small Mexican place nearby his apartment at the time. After my dad had taken us on a few shorter initial trips there, the visits to the restaurant gradually became longer. They made killer nachos over there, and one of the regulars offered to buy us a soda or two, so when my dad asked us if we wanted to go, we never really minded making the long trip. What we did mind was staying at that Mexican place for hours with no one in sight. The visits became hours long at a time, which my dad and uncle repeatedly getting drunk with my mom, siblings, and me having absolutely nothing to do. The music was so loud that we couldn't even have a normal conversation, leaving my mom absolutely bored and surrounded by drunken men in our family, and knowing she was dragged there simply to be the designated driver while stuck with 3 kids who were getting increasingly tired. The music bothered me a lot and made my hearing feel overloaded, so I often went outside where it was quieter, but always in the sight of my parents. One time, we arrived there in a summer afternoon around 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday. We ended up staying there until 8:30 at the soonest because I remember this occurring around nightfall. I didn't have many friends at the time due to my lack of social skills and everyone ostracizing me, so I got a phone call from a friend. With the music being ridiculously loud, I went outside in the front window to take a call where it was quieter, and we mostly talked about this weekend's homework. After I hung up, I turned around to go back to the restaurant when I see a man. I've seen him around often enough, but I never talked to him. He asks, "How old are you?" I tell him my age, being the naive kid that I was. "What are you doing outside?" I tell him that I needed to take a call, but I'm done and want to tell my parents that we should go home. "How about I take you home instead?" Before I have the chance to respond, he starts to grab my wrist, and chills are sent down my spine and I froze. I see my mom shake my drunk dad and head towards the restaurant door. The man darted away, letting me go, and we went home immediately after that. It's been years since I've been there, and if I recall correctly, they've been closed down for a while. So, friendly regular at the Mexican place, I don't know what the hell happened to you after that, but I don't want to know, and let's never meet again. This was posted by 1Filament5, followed home for the first time. This happened to me a few weeks ago, and after telling someone the full story, I realized it was a bit creepy and I wanted to share. I also just moved a week ago and I haven't looked back. First post and on mobile. I was living just outside a major city in the Pacific Northwest in an area known for being a bit shady. Some petty crimes, but definitely not a place to walk around with headphones or be out at night. I'm a mid-20s female, I box for fun, and I've become very aware of my surroundings given the homeless issue around here. I decided to go to a bar 5 blocks up the road since it was just one of those nights. I had one too many drinks and I start walking home around 11 p.m. on a weeknight. There's no one on the streets and a few cars. When I walk across the street, I see that a man started to follow me, so I keep walking and get my pepper spray out of my backpack. You never know these days. Suddenly, there's a man up next to me in a dark puffy coat saying hello, asking how I'm doing. My pace picks up and my body grows cold as I pick up the pace and he is shoulder to shoulder with me. My arms are crossed holding the pepper spray and he keeps talking to me and brushing shoulders, saying how beautiful I am and rambling. I don't remember anything else he said due to my adrenaline and panic as I'm alone in the dark and intoxicated. I get up to my street and there's about 10 stairs that I have to go up from the street with the house I'm living in at the top and a 15-foot driveway. I start to turn to go up the stairs, and the man says he wants to take me home. Me, no. Man, please, miss, I get my pepper spray out and raise it. I said, no, leave me alone, stop. I see him start to reach out to me, and I turn and book it up the stairs and hear him screaming at me. Unsure if he's following me, I don't look back. I punch the door code and lock the door behind me. My heart is racing, and I stood at the door for a moment, praying that he didn't see where it went, and that he doesn't bang on the doors and yell and wake up my roommates. It stays silent. I walk up to my room, I lock my door, and a few tears stream down. I called an apartment manager the next day to view an apartment 8 miles away at what's known as a much safer, quiet area. I took the apartment and moved 2 weeks later. Sorry for the long post and lackluster ending, but to verbalize being truly followed and having to yell was a first. I always mentally planned to clock someone at the job, but at the moment all I could do was yell and run. So to the bum who wanted to make sure I got home safe, I very much made it without you, and please, let's not meet again. This one was posted by Cheetah_11. Creepy man on the hiking trail. This isn't something that happened to me, but something that happened to my best friend. This happened only a few weeks ago, and here's a little background. My best friend walks her dog all the time on the trail. It's a trail and a public park, and it's popular, so a lot of people go there. She pulled into the parking lot and got her dog out of the car without an issue. She was walking over to the trail, and she noticed a man standing a little back in the woods staring at her. He was standing right by the entrance to the trail. She said that he was a man in his mid-20s, and she told me that she thought he had a dog with him and that the dog was going to the bathroom. As she got closer, she realized he didn't have a dog. She was maybe 10 to 15 feet away from him, and he still stared at her. He didn't say one thing to her. She felt uneasy and booked it back to the car. He followed her back to the car, and she quickly got in and unlocked the doors. He started banging on her window, and she couldn't make out much of what he said. She drove off and called the police. The police asked her if she spoke to the man, and they didn't seem to take it seriously at first. They finally said they would send someone out to look. It scared the hell out of her. She went to a different trail to walk her dog, and she hadn't seen him since, thank God. I hope he was caught because he could stalk another girl. And whoever the hell this creepy guy was, I hope you never meet my best friend ever again. School Predator. This was written by Masher Upper. This happened around 4 years ago in middle school, grade 6, around when I was 10 or 11. Often, our school would do fire drills 3 times a year and 1 lockdown drill so every student could be prepared for emergencies. This happened around mid-year when we'd already done our lockdown drill months ago, so when the specific siren went off, I knew it wasn't a drill. At the time, I was in the toilet when the sirens started blaring. Of course I was scared, leaving myself locked in the stall. We were always told if we were in the bathroom, a teacher would come get us and take us to the nearest classroom for safety. I remember counting and waiting a few minutes for whatever teacher would find me, but none came. I decided to exit the bathroom and walk around in the yard a bit. The sirens were still going, so trying to hear for anything wasn't really an option, although the front of the school, there was a dirty-looking man leaning on the fence and just staring towards the school, knife in hand. When he noticed me, he waved before entering the school, walking towards me. Of course, I started running away, heading towards the bins and hiding between those. He never found me, but I know he was arrested because my mom brought up the info on him recently, describing that he'd been watching the school every day in his car, and the reason that the school went into lockdown was because they noticed him standing out front. And the reason why my mom only told this info recently to me was because she thought I couldn't handle it back then. Alright, now time for some announcements. So, I'm going to be restarting my regular Tuesday videos, but due to the fact that YouTube has made it so that you cannot live stream on YouTube unless you have 1,000 subscribers, I am going to start live streaming on YouNow Maybe I'll gain some more subscribers from you now, so I don't exactly see this as being a bad thing. And I'm going to be continuing my series on anti-vaxxers. Coming up next on the anti-vaxxer series, part 2 is going to be talking about the actual diseases themselves and all of the negative consequences that come with the diseases. In part 3, I'm going to be talking about the outbreaks that have happened and how many children have been infected with diseases, along with possible death rates due to the diseases and due to specifically anti-vaxxers. Thank you for watching. Stay spooky.